Well, today I have Nigel Thurlow with me, and from the Flow system, obviously, as you've probably clicked on this for the clickbait thumbnail as we have there. But yeah, it's right there, of course, on Nigel's shirt as well. So, but today we're going to be answering the hard questions for individuals, as Nigel's distracting us with his pointing there, as I make totally ADD. But I'm going to ask a hard question today. Why should someone spend their funds on the Flow system training over other trainings that are like Scrum, Kanban, Safe, Scrum at Scale that might be more well known to the current market?
I was looking at some of the things you'd sent me, some of the notes you'd sent me, James, and I appreciate you doing this and asking these questions. My view is you should still learn Scrum. You should still go learn Kanban. Maybe I'll have some different views on Safe for different reasons. We'll probably save that for a different conversation. But I did take the Safe training on my own and got certified as well. You know, that's a horrible word, certified. I'll come back to that because I thought it was valuable for me to fully understand what they were selling and what it consisted of. And I continue to study all of these things. So from that perspective, you should still do all that training.
Okay.
One of the challenges is that they're what we call closed systems, closed frameworks. They're not open systems, so they're not adaptable in complexity or in complex situations. They're very fixed and to a degree quite rigid. And even Scrum at its very basic level as a minimal viable bureaucracy, as it used to be called in some of the classes, on a lightweight framework, it is still very closed and prescriptive to the way it works. It's also single lensed. It's there predominantly for software development. It's now spreading beyond software because of the behavior patterns.
Are you talking about Scrum or?
I'm talking about Scrum. I'm so sorry. I thought you'd follow me there. So even with Scrum, you have a very single lensed view of things that we're talking about. Now, what's the flow system? The flow system is not a framework. It's not a methodology. It's not going to tell you how to go fix your business in your context. And then when you look at the previous frameworks we're talking about, they are very contextual and they try to sell a one size fits all approach. And Scrum is gradually, and I'm a Scrum trainer, I'm a professional Scrum trainer. So Scrum is gradually bursting its sort of reins or bursting from its reins and trying to encompass more of the market and more of the different contexts. But again, these things are quite contextual. So the flow system provides a sort of a reimagined system for organizations to understand complexity. So things like the Cynefin framework, complex adaptive systems, complexity thinking, which is different to what people are probably familiar with, which is systems thinking, more in the lean, ordered, predictable, linear causality world, to embrace teamwork and autonomous team-based leadership structures, so what we call distributed leadership. Whereas when you talk about Scrum, Safe, and Kanban teams is a bit of an oxymoron because Kanban, I could get into that later, but Kanban's more about the visual control, the visualization and the team itself, and a just-in-time pull system. But the reality of it is none of these other approaches teach you how to be a team. They tell you to be a team, and they give you some prescribed role or some prescribed do this, do that, do the other, but they don't actually teach you how to be a team. So then we go further into team science, and we actually teach the science of teamwork and how to be a team and team training as one key differentiator. Now, the other thing is, repeat this, it's not a framework. It's a system of learning and understanding. I actually wrote, what did I write? I wrote something down earlier. I don't know if I've still got it around me, but I'll try and think of it later on. But the reality of it is there's a big difference between training and teaching. And not a lot of people, and I did some research on this, and training is more akin or more like coaching. So when you go into a training room to do training, you're focusing more on the practical and the concrete exercises to actually do the doing and to actually implement the work. The problem is, imagine this, you go into a room and you're with 20 or 30 other people, depending on how large the training group is. And unless it's in your own company, in your own context, then you tend to be with a bunch of people from different contexts. So there's no single contextual situation. People are there to learn the basics of all these different things like Scrum or Kanban or other things. So that's not really education, which is teaching. So teaching's really looking at the theories, the abstracts, the constructs, the deeper understanding, independent context, the long-term learning process rather than short-term quick fix. And a lot of teaching and training is self-initiated versus just being provided by somebody. And so what we're looking to do here is to combine the theory, the education, the teaching, the deep understanding with explaining and teaching people how to apply this practically so they can go and do the application and then the future reflection of what they're learning. The other thing, just to, well, and I'll be quiet and let you ask me something else, of course, because I don't be like a Fox News journalist and interrupt me all the time. And so people outside of the US won't get that joke so much. But so the thing is this, is that we want to enable a deep level of knowledge and understanding. This is why we call it a system of learning and understanding. What we're showing is we've got our foundation in Toyota's production system and what a lot of people call lean thinking, subtle differences, but you know, for the purpose of this, more or less the same thing from that perspective. But we've shown what needs to be elevated beyond that in what we call this age of complexity. We're now in an age of complex problems, both in society, things like COVID as we're recording this, and various other different parts of organizational design and organizational execution. So we want to deliver that high level of education, but also explain how to apply the different techniques. So the flow system has a number of tools, techniques, methods, and approaches, but they all have what's called bounded applicability, which means they all have a limitation to their utility or usefulness based upon the context you're applying them in. So we teach what the tools are, what the techniques are, the methods. We teach the deep thinking behind them, the root information, the academia behind them, as well as the practicality with them. And then we enable people to decide within their context which tools they should apply in their contextual situation. And Scrum's in there. Agile techniques are in there. Lean thinking or TPS, you know, I mean, I'm from a Toyota background, so that's all in there, along with many other new techniques to enable a deep understanding of teams, a deep understanding of leadership, and of course, a deeper understanding of complex problems and complexity thinking. James.
Yeah, I mean, that's all great stuff. And of course, I'm here to ask the hard questions. And I feel like you already answered kind of my next hardest question is what makes the flow training better? And just to practice reflective listening here, what I'm hearing is that you're saying that the flow system is not only more like it's it's not just more tools than just, you know, flow, not so sorry, not flow, than Scrum, Kanban, or Safe or something else. It is all the tools, their appropriate context, and a deeper understanding of where their boundaries lie and how to use them and where they came from, the history. Is that my understanding?
Yeah, I mean, you are paraphrasing it really well. So good active listening skills there, because that's in the flow system as well. And asking better questions is something we could always talk about, which would be interesting as a concept. I don't like saying our training is better. Our training offers a different value proposition. So we're offering something that what I was told I did, and again, this was just by fluke. A lot of things Nigel does is by fluke and by happenstance. I'm very fortunate that I know some incredibly brilliant, incredibly clever people. Doesn't always mean I'm that person. I think fast and I have a lot of good ideas, but I have a lot of very clever people around me. People like Professor John Turner, who's a real professor at a real university, is one of the co-creators and co-authors, and my close friend Brian Ponch Rivera, who's brought all his military training and military expertise from flying F-14s off aircraft carriers to the high-performing team, high-reliability organization training, and he's fortunate he still serves in the military and brings a lot of that experience without any of the secrets he's not allowed to tell us to the flow system as an approach. So we're offering a different value proposition. It's education, not certification. And we'll come on to that in a moment. Somebody actually said the other day, this is education, it's not entertainment, because that's sometimes what you get when you go into a training class you get this sort of very lightweight, very superficial entertainment value. And then they classify that as incredible education and give you a certificate. And now you're an expert. You've certified these people as an expert to go practice. And they maybe didn't even heard the word Scrum before they walked in the class. Now they got the resume with a certificate saying, I'm a Scrum expert. And they go back through all the resume and all those roles that said project manager or BA or something, they suddenly become Scrum master, an Agile coach. And this is the problem. So what we're trying to do is give a different value proposition. So the flow system ultimately provides an understanding of different methods, patterns, practices, and techniques, enables an organization or organizations or institutions to achieve the desired outcomes. So we're giving a value proposition to people to learn this and a value proposition for organizations to embrace what we're offering. Now, Kanban, if anybody knows about Kanban properly, is actually the key technique in a just-in-time manufacturing and production system developed by Toyota. We did a big history lesson on LinkedIn recently with a fantastic interactive post that drew nearly 60,000 views, where we talked about the origins. But modern day Kanban, as we understand it, as a lot of the Kanban practitioners using in the Agile world, derives from the just-in-time production system of Toyota. So you can guarantee that teaching Kanban correctly is in the flow system. So we encompass Kanban and the correct uses of it. We encompass Scrum as a behavioral pattern, which is what I believe that Scrum is, having taught it for the best part of the last 10 years. And then many of the elements that SAFe has co-opted and rebranded as their own. No, nothing new there. It's a fact. And hey, all good kudos to Dean and to the folks who've created SAFe and created that fantastic revenue model. But things like value streams, which they announced in the last few months as being this miraculous new thing, we've been doing for about 7 decades in the lean world. So nothing really new there, but that's a key thing in organizational design. So these are the elements. So our training is, I'm not saying it's better. I think it's a different value proposition. I think the aspect of education and deep understanding is valuable. And I hope people will see this value in following that path.